This group of 5 questions is one of my favourite for taking people from the past through the present and into the future in an action-oriented learning mechanism that allows you to construct learning loops, hence the name of the journal that you're using, and allows you to incrementally step through and design change and growth over time. We know that change, real change in the brain, takes about 3 months or so more sometimes to become relatively hardwired, and that we need iterative approaches to be able to build our learning, reflection, insight into action that follows. And it's that cycle of thinking and doing that this set of questions encourages you to do. So a quick look at each of the 5 questions and why they are where they are. So the first is around the past, or the current reality, if you like, of what happened. And it sits around the question of what did you notice? What did you see? What did others notice? What things happened? Some of the details, if you like, of the situation that you want to reflect on, whether that was something that worked well and you want to extract learning from that, or whether something didn't go so well and again you want to extract learning from that situation. The next step rightfully involves emotions in the learning process. And you'll read in the small amount of text that's in the journal that emotions are critical to place markers or signals on neurons that are to be kept or strengthened overnight in sleep. And so this question of identifying the emotions that were felt, the emotions that were present in you, in others around you, is a good way of progressing through this and capturing the learning. And be aware, as I've written in the opening notes for the journal, the negative disposition emotions are the ones where most learning occurs. So when you feel frustrated, when you feel a lack of confidence, when you feel a bit confused, these are the emotions that flag that there is stretch going on, that you're paying more attention because you are out of your comfort zone. And that attention, as you'll see in a second, plays into one of the other key models that supports this from a brain-based, evidenced neuroscience approach that this set of 5 questions gives you. I call this question the bridge question. What we can do is ruminate on a situation that didn't go as planned, that might have been somewhat of a disaster. And what we do is we cycle through those first questions. This happened, I feel like that. This happened, other people said. This happened, I feel like rubbish. And that cycle can be quite damaging unless you find a way out. Those first 2 questions have got valuable data, but they lose their value when you ruminate and stay stuck in those 2 questions. So to move through and beyond from the past to the future, we use the bridge question. What did I learn? What was learnt? What did we learn? If I'm coaching someone else, what did you learn? And it's a very, very powerful question because there is learning in anything that doesn't go well. In fact, errors signal the brain to pay more attention, and errors are the source of learning. You don't learn anywhere near as much, if at all, when things go well. So this one, spend some time reflecting on anything you can extract in terms of the learning. When we learn something new, often new options open up. And so the 4th question is really moving us into a future state from the past through the bridge of what was learned into what can we do now. And while there may not be obvious large numbers of options, the more you explore, the more options appear for you for consideration of your next point of action. And so list those, brainstorm them out, discuss with other people 2, 3, 4 things you could potentially do now that you know what you've learnt from this situation. And finally, we move into the exit out of the reflection phase into the action phase with what will I do now? What action follows? This is crucial because we learn from 2 key things, in fact 3 key things. We learn from content, which is really what you've been reflecting on so far. It may also be content from other people in the form of a book, a course, but we need to also learn from doing stuff. So learning comes from action, And learning comes from meaning-making conversation, reflection about the action. So commit to a single action if you can. Maybe there are 2 or 3 that follow, but not too many, because you need to be able to address that action in your next reflection phase. And guess what? The next reflection phase starts like this. How did that go? What happened? What did I notice? What did others notice? How did I feel? What did I learn? What other options open up now? And then what will I do next? So these form 2 sides of a coin, if you like. One where we're reflecting, where we go through observation, reflection, clarity. That's what we're trying to find here. That's what the learning should be. I'm now more clear about this, and maybe even insight. I didn't realize that before, but now that I know it, and that leads into further action. So that cycle on the right-hand side is the action phase. When we stop and reflect on that, how that action went, we use the left-hand side. I've also referenced briefly a model by David Rock called the AGES model. David Rock is the author of many really good books and is the CEO of the Neuro Leadership Institute. And he suggests, through the agency of the research available to him and to his organisation, that there are 4 things necessary for ongoing learning: attention, generation, emotion, and spacing. And each of those, as explained briefly in the book, contribute to learning that lasts, that turns into visible change. And so attention is the currency of learning and change. If we don't attend to something, either through self-awareness or through direct reflection, then we don't simply do any work in the brain to hardwire that whole process. Generation is the work. It's the action, and it's also the cognitive work in the working memory part of the brain of your reflection questions. The deliberate attachment of emotion, positive or negative, doesn't really matter. And as we've already said, negative emotions to a certain degree are really powerful for engineering change in the brain. And then we need spacing. And the most natural form of spacing is sleep. We need several opportunities interspersed with sleep. And during sleep, we have strengthening and weakening during one particular phase of sleep, strengthening and weakening of existing neurons. So we are actually engaging in deeper neuroplasticity, the change in the brain that results in the change we want to see through the agency of sleep, and the inputs into that process have come through attention, generation, and emotion. And finally, what this process should be doing for you is giving you a balcony and dance floor type view. You can see in this image that this person on the balcony is watching themselves on the dance floor. Now that's a difficult concept in some ways, and it's very hard to do in the moment where you can be in the game and on the game. You can see yourself in the dance, but you can be, from the clarity of distance, being able to see yourself on the dance, if that makes sense. Now, because that's hard to do both together at the same time, there's deep value in a reflective process that steps back from the moment of action and takes the position of seeing yourself from the clarity of distance. Now, if you're too immersed or if you're too emotionally invested in the situation, you may need the help of a trusted friend or even a coach to help you find that clarity of distance and to see what you can't see because you're not yet on the balcony. So that's one important process that this reflective journal encourages. And if you can't quite get all of the value from being still a bit too close to the action, then find someone else that will help you get some distance and the better perspective, the deeper perspective you get from that clarity of distance position. I hope that you enjoy the journal. I'd love to get some feedback myself. If there's something I can do to recreate or recraft the next iteration to help you better, please let me know. All the best and blue skies for your learning.